Great. Well, I'm pleased now to be joined by Nancy Mahon, who's championed the Estée Lauder company's climate action for many years. And we were just chatting about that. I think it's like the third or fourth time we've done this at the opening ceremony, so it's good. I could get to check back in on progress. The Estée Lauder companies have partnered with Climate Group for 6 years, and in 2022 they're joining us as a headline sponsor. So thank you very much for being with us today. And we're going to talk about what it takes to get it done in big multinational businesses like yours. So what's top of the agenda for the Estée Lauder companies at the moment? How are you getting it done there?
First of all, I just want to say thank you. Climate is a humbling business, and it's a team sport. So Climate Group has been such a great partner to us over the years. In terms of getting it done, we work on a few levels. One is from a governance level, we set goals. We just announced an EV goal, EV 100, and we've joined you guys. We have a science-based target for 2030. So we have a range of initiatives, and of course, change starts at home. And so we are really focusing on building our green infrastructure. We just announced a solar mount in Canada and also in Switzerland.
Great. And one of the biggest threats, obviously, to climate action is inaction. We need to create an environment in which businesses really feel empowered to be ambitious. How can we support companies to be ambitious and be bold in their commitments?
It's a great question. I'm a big believer in goals. Businesses manage to numbers, and the goals have really given us a framework to work across the organization. On a governance level, we have an ESG governance structure co-chaired by our head of HR, our EVP of HR, and our CFO. And we have various committees that work. And then on an operational level, really goals allow us to glide path out over a series of years how we're actually going to get there. And then we hold ourselves accountable on a quarterly basis. So I do think that goals are an important piece of the solution.
And what about internal leaders? How does that work when you're sitting in your office, you've got your goals, but then there's people out there in the business? What's that work about engaging internally?
That's a great question, and we have some of our folks here today. First, the most important thing I would say is talent. We focused a great deal on getting folks, candidly, who know how to get stuff done, usually people who have executional experience from other CDP consumer goods companies. How does it work? Actually, Ally Nuzzi, who ably leads our climate work, is here. We have a series of 3 work groups, and we have a climate action steering committee that's co-chaired by myself, our controller, and our head of supply chain. And then work group by work group, we have working teams. So you need both a governance structure that holds folks like me accountable, but then you also need a kind of roll up your sleeves. I'm not wearing any sleeves today, but a really roll up your sleeves work groups, whether that be scope 3 or whether it be operations, so that you are able to basically get work done. I think the other thing is, maybe 6 years ago when I started this job, the climate group was a very small group within our company. Now everyone's job is climate. And I think that's another important piece to bring to your company, is that everyone needs to be mobilized and inspired and engaged.
And the next thing I want to talk about is we've talked about this theme today of accountability and more action, less announcing. How do we go beyond commitments to demonstrate that progress, and what does it look like? What does it really look like to be accountable?
Well, one of the most important things that we do, honestly, is we focus on our stakeholders. So we spend about a third of my time speaking to investors, and they hold us accountable. They talk with us about our interim targets. How are we doing? So we, of course, report to CDP every year. We also have an annual report, and those reports are incredibly important documents. For public companies like ours, we actually publicly state how we're doing. So I would encourage folks to really lean in on those reports. And then also with the various ratings and rankings, we see a lot of, I would say, literacy and sophistication amongst the big raters and rankers on how our climate performance is moving. And then lastly, one of the most important people we have, or stakeholders, really are our employees. We do a survey every year, ELC Listens, to see what we could be doing better. And what we see is that climate is the most important issue in ESG for our employees, and they engage basically on we have green teams. But I think it's important to not only understand that goals are important, but also our accountability to individual stakeholders, and then to create communications plans on how you communicate with those stakeholders. And then lastly, we're a consumer goods company. We spend a lot of time understanding what we call conscious consumers. And the great news is there's a huge rise in conscious consumers. And so what I would say for folks in the audience is also vote with your wallet, because it definitely supports programs like ours. And we're seeing really important regional differences. And so we're working with our regional teams to make sure that we are offering the most sustainable products.
Great. And I want to talk a bit about how you use events like this to kind of hold yourselves accountable. I was just saying, I was talking to some media, and they're like, what is it to turn up each year? And we're like, well, we get to check in on progress. And I also wanted to talk about, I understood last year at this event you met Gloria Walton from the Solutions Project. Can you tell us a bit about how participating in Climate Week has kind of led to change for you?
Well, actually, last year I was on the panel with Gloria from the Solutions Project, and a piece of the work that we do is we were really looking to marry our S work and our E work, essentially. And so through the Estée Lauder Companies Foundation, we fund a lot of groups who are working with BIPOC folks to raise, I would say, to create more climate leaders of color. Gloria has an amazing project there that we're supporting, basically small grassroots climate groups that are led by people of color. And I would just encourage people to really roll your sleeves up, as I said before, but also that get busy at this week. There are people here who could really help you achieve your goals. Climate is a humbling endeavor, I think, and there's so many areas where we do not know exactly how we're going to get to a target, but we need partners. So thanks to the Climate Group for introducing us, and also for those of you who are going to COP27, we'll also be partnering and doing some important work around suppliers.
Great. And, at the moment, there's so many complex challenges that business leaders are faced with. How are you, it must be really hard to kind of navigate that and keep climate action at the top of the agenda. With all of those, how are you managing to kind of prioritize at the moment?
Well, we're fortunate in that at the Estée Lauder Companies, sustainability has been what we call a transformation initiative, which is that we looked at the total end-to-end value of our business and embedded it along the way. And we really try and focus very simply on our products and embed sustainable practices, particularly low carbon usage across our products, whether it be our formulas or our water usage in our plants. And also, in terms of our people, we're focusing on upskilling. So again, what we're trying to emphasize is how do we intentionally embed it across every aspect of our business? And then how do we create forums where leaders across the business can problem solve together, like this. Actually, we have a great team here this week of very able leaders.
Great. And then my last question, you've talked about collaboration and partnership and how important that is in driving forward progress. Can you talk a bit about your supply chain work? You've got a session coming up at the Hub Live on Wednesday, and I know that you've put suppliers really at the heart of your strategy, so maybe we can finish on that.
Sure. I mean, basically, one of the things we think a lot about is how do we leverage our size, and about 95% of our Scope 3 footprint, about 95% of our footprint is Scope 3, which is our suppliers. So at the end of the day, we are not hitting our 2030 target unless we get there. So we have joined a supplier effort, and we've asked the top 200 of our suppliers to register with CDP, so accountability, visibility into the data. At the same time, we know when we talk about an equitable transition that many diverse suppliers do not have climate capability. And so we've joined arms with other CPG companies around climate education. I think that's a critical piece of how we move together so that we can both move the bigger suppliers, but also encourage suppliers who are relatively smaller suppliers, people of color and women, to also be at the top of their game in terms of climate.
Fantastic. Nancy, thank you. I don't know if you've got one last word for us on kind of getting it done and inspiring our audience here.
Well, this is a humbling endeavor, and every single one of you in this room matters, honestly. And I think, one of the things that's been really clear from the speakers this morning is the stakes are very high, and this is a moment where we will look back and we will say, what is it that we individually did? And so I know for some of you this is a night job, for some of you it's a day job, but I feel the future is very bright. I am very optimistic about our ability to all work together, and we just need to, as our earlier panelists said, just need to speed ourselves up a little bit. Also, this is an open invitation to reach out to Estée Lauder. We are looking for partners. We are looking for solutions. So thanks for having us.
Fantastic.
And have a great week.